Hey, good morning, everybody. Doc and Dave. It's Friday morning. Doc, it's raining here. We need it. I don't like it, but we need it. So it's good for everything around the world as far as the fires, everything we had in Oklahoma. So thank goodness for the rain. Today, you and I have been talking about how do we help school leaders identify challenges before they become a challenge. Mm-hmm. And I know you've been working with our team to develop a threat assessment system that does just that. And I know you have some specific things you want to talk about today. And I'm going to tell everybody that watches this, it's extremely interesting to have this discussion because this is stuff that we should be seeing and we're missing. Mm-hmm. But the system will help us identify what we're missing and then have conversations before things get out of control. Is that fair, Doc?
Absolutely, 100%. I was just, thinking about it because, one of the things that I don't like about threat assessment is the fact that you can't do it until someone's on the radar, right? Until you have a concerning behavior. And of course, if you have a concerning behavior, you got to do a threat assessment. And I think we have, talked that to death, right? The importance of that, how to do it and things like this. But here's a question. I was having a discussion with a superintendent the other day. And he was talking about, technology and all the things. And we were talking about prevention and stuff like this. And all his stuff was surrounding the people, the kids that he already know are problems, right? So threat assessment is built for that 10% of the people. You already know who's a problem, right? If someone, does the finger gun or does something that indicates they're in crisis or they're on the pathway. We talked a lot about the pathway behaviors, that they're planning or preparing to do some sort of violence. That results in behavior that you can see, right? That you can detect, right? And that's where we start the threat assessment, and rightly so. And that's super important. But my question back to the superintendent is, what about the other 90% of the kids that aren't on your radar yet? Do we wait until they get so frustrated that they want to kill somebody or that they're thinking to be violent? And that even goes for suicide, not violence directed to themselves. Do we want to wait to get to the point that there's some sort of a suicide note, right, or some sort of indication that they're talking about hurting themselves? Because once that happens, that triggers a threat assessment, right, and all the stuff we talk about, and that's all preventive. But it's not preventive unless you have something to start the process. So I want to try to kind of change the conversation a bit. This is the area that I'm totally focused on right now, is the stuff before the concerning behavior that if you don't do something about it is going to become the concerning behavior. So why even do the threat assessment if you can stop it before it becomes necessary to do it, right? I guess that's kind of the point.
Well, I think isn't that what you're working on it's not a student management system, but it is. That takes trend data in certain areas. You're going to talk about those areas in a second. Right. And then it helps you identify students that maybe go, I don't want to call it path, but going down a path, right? Things aren't going as they should, and they need somebody to go, hey, are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the way you put that. They're going down a path. Okay, there's many paths, right? Yep. We talk in terms of obviously the worst path, which is the path to violence. Yep. Okay. But there are other things besides the ending up being some sort of a school shooter or even less lethal type violence. If you take it back, really, what are we trying to do with our kids? We're trying to help them be successful. We want them to be successful. And like you pointed out in our previous discussions, middle school, high school, two of the toughest times in anyone's life, right? And that's the time where you're most vulnerable because these kids are having a really hard time for all the reasons that we know, right? Especially with the advent of technology and social media, which has just added a whole nother level of problems. But kids don't have, the reason they have problem coping and things like this makes this extremely problematic, is the fact that they have no life experience. They don't have a thick skin yet. You and me, we've been around for a while. And when someone, calls us a name or kind of tries to bully us a little bit, it doesn't bother us at all, right? I see a dead body. I've seen so many dead bodies in my time, and it doesn't bother me anymore, right?
Well, Doc, you're an anomaly there. Most people
right. But that first dead body bothered me, right? And I still remember that dead body, right? I remember the first suicide I worked, right? After that, it's just kind of like, not that you don't care, you whatever. It's just that I've got a coping mechanism because
You're
I've dealt with it
desensitized
before.
to it.
Right. Right. And so the kids are that way. It's everything's new. Life is new, and they are excited. And then it's all these problems that happen, right? Between, in school, bullying, all the other stuff, losses in their lives, things that are out of their control, and all the other stuff. And so what happens is that when that happens and they go into crisis, regardless, they do something that brings our attention to it. That's the concerning behavior. Now I want to stop talking about that and back up a little bit. Okay. If you're a parent, if you are a superintendent, a teacher, okay, your concern on your students and your kids is that they grow up to be successful people,
Yep.
right? That they're not a problem, that they're loving people, they're good people, and they're success, right? And so school is the thing that sets them up or can set them up for success, if you know what you're looking for. And so one of the things that I'm working very diligently on is a system. It's an AI-based system that I'm working with, SafeDefend's working with, where we're doing actually like predictive analytics. In other words,
Yep.
to learn about that, when you talk about the superintendent, they know who they're, like I said, they know who their problem kids are, right? That's the concerning behavior. Are they on the pathway or not? There's no issue. We're going to deal with those kids. But what about the 90%, the other 90% that is developing these problems, and we don't know until it's a problem? So when you step back, one of the things that we're learning is that with the AI and with the analysis of the predictive analytics, the risk is that it has to do with three things. One is academic success, right?
Yep.
So are they getting good grades? So if their academics are declining, attendance is another one, the second A, right?
Yep.
That is, are they showing up to school? Are they showing up to class? Are they even engaging in class? I mean, it doesn't just have to be physical attendance. Are they there? Are they present? And then the other thing is interpersonal decline. So academic decline, attendance decline, interpersonal decline. Those are the three indicators of student success. Okay. And so what we're looking at in terms of this, this process is predictive analytics, a software, which is AI driven, is to look at, just like we do in threat assessment, baselines and anomalies, right? What is normal and what is off the baseline. And what this allows you to do then with the AI is look at different siloed systems, right? So you might have your student management system, right? That's where all the grades go in. The attendance goes in, maybe discipline. If you have security stuff on a kid's computer that you issue from the school, therefore you have access to it legally. What sites are they going to? What internet sites? What social media? It scrapes public information that you can get as far as something to do with every single student in the district. Looking at observations, right? People that say, "Oh, this didn't seem right" or whatever, and they report that. That goes into the system, and it's all these nuanced things, right? So you've got the AI up here, and you have all the things that is makes up monitoring
all the data
student,
points,
all the data points, right?
Yep.
And so you're looking at academics, attendance, and interpersonal decline, right? And you're looking at various changes on that. So when the student goes to a website, that goes in there. Maybe we have access control. We have visitors that come in, right? That goes in there. The grades, the attendance, the disciplinary stuff, extracurricular activities, what they're doing outside of the classroom. And then, interpersonal stuff that people notice. And so we have all this stuff. And right now it requires someone, the security person, a threat assessor, whatever you want to call it, to sit there and constantly monitor this stuff, and then say, oh, well, that looks kind of like, well, that we're on the pathway and here we are, and we got to do this intervention, right? Well, we're humans and we can't keep our mind on that 24/7, right?
Nope.
We have other things going on like eating and sleeping and things. AI doesn't do that. AI is there 24/7 a day, 24/7 every single day, and it's there and it's collecting the data, right? but it's not keeping the data, right? It's not creating data, and it's all anomalized. So we're not giving the AI any information in terms of biographical information or even the student's name. The school has that in their systems. They don't share that with us. We don't even want it. So basically, you've got this AI thing that 24 hours a day is looking only at data. It's not subjective. It doesn't get tired, and it has the ability to pick up very, very nuanced changes in behavior off of the kid, which allows you then back in grade school starting to collect data on kids. Now, and when I say collect data, I probably should reframe that. We're monitoring baselines through the data that is provided by the school already. We're not being big brother. So I don't want to give that impression. We're just up there looking at stuff, right? And then we basically, when there's changes in the baseline, based on what the school wants, whatever they determine is worthy of looking at, it gets sent on the dashboard to whoever it is, maybe the threat assessor. So now we have a threat assessment team, right? They look at that. The teachers look at that. The principal looks at that. It gets shared with the parents maybe to help that student get better academics, better attendance, and better interpersonal interactions. Because if we can help in those three areas, that person or that kid will never be on the pathway to violence, will never give us any sort of concerning behavior that says, oh my God, he might be dangerous. We need to look at this. It never even gets to that point. And I think that's where the value is here. And no human being, no matter how good of a threat assessor you are, how smart you are, can do predictive analytics like that. All you can do as a threat assessor is, once you have a problem, how do we deal with it? And that's what we deal with in threat assessment. But we want to get even in front of that and look at things that are predictive of academic decline, attendance decline, and interpersonal decline, because that is what equals student success. And we have empirically determined that, found that to be. And here's the beauty of it. Someone gets the system, right? So come to SafeDefend and you say, okay, we want it's not a threat assessment violence thing, right? It's a academic or student success application that, by the way, also monitors for the small, very few of them that might become violent as a sub module. And it's doing that with all the same data. So you're not buying against a siloed threat assessment thing for something that's most likely never going to happen, right? And so that's always the argument, right? It's technology that works completely left of bang and gives you everything so that then you can make decisions in terms of your intervention and how you want to deal with the problem.
So, Doc, you've been very good at explaining this. I'm gonna give you a family story that kind of simplifies the system, right?
We need that. Parents, I need simplification.
so as parents that raise young kids, they're always testing the waters, they're always pushing the boundaries, they're always making decisions that probably aren't the best decisions because they don't know any better, right?
Right.
And somebody says something, so they do this. So years ago, when my kids were little bitty, we have 2 ponds in front of the neighborhood, and it was freezing outside, and the ponds are frozen over. And my wife's just doing her thing. I'm at work, blah, 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 blah. And she sees the kids have posted on Instagram my daughter walking across the pond. Right? Right? So now my wife was really good about keeping up with social media for the kids and trying to keep things in the lanes when the kids were in middle school and whatnot. And the kids walk home, and my wife looks at the kids and goes, hey, were you walking across the pond? And my daughter's eyes and son's eyes and the little neighbor's kids' eyes all got real big. And she's like, do you think that was a good decision? We're just having fun. And it created a conversation. She didn't get mad at the kids.
Right.
She said, hey, that's a behavior that's going to get you hurt. This is what's going to happen. Let's not do that anymore. Right. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about Big Brother hammering kids and getting in their face. It's like, hey, let's use kids at school. Girls, especially in middle school, are trying to be seen by boys, and boys are trying to be seen by girls. It's nature, right?
Right.
And you see a young lady in the hallway acting inappropriately, doing and saying things she shouldn't do. This is an opportunity. If we see those behaviors, the teacher can go, hey, Sally, are you okay? You kind of like in boys, what's going on? Or the counselor have a conversation going, you know what? You're better than that. Don't let those boys tell you that you have to be this way.
Right. Right.
I mean, there are so many applications that go to the foundation of who we are and whether we're successful or not in life. And part of that's self-esteem. And I think a lot of kids' self-esteem gets beaten out of them in middle school, right?
Yeah.
Because kids are freaking mean.
Yeah.
So if we have a way, we see a kid not coming to school or being late all the time that was a great student before, it's an opportunity to go, hey, what's going on in your personal life? What happened? Are you having relationship problems? Did something happen to you we don't know about? I mean, how many girls in high school get sexually assaulted that never say anything, or college?
Right.
I mean, the student success system is going to help teachers and leaders in schools give parents information to help protect their kids, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is well before the path of violence. This is all about just
right. And that's the whole but that's the whole point here. What we're talking about. That's a great example. It's stopping things or dealing with things before they get out of control, or before it gets to the point to where, they get on a real pathway, which we want to keep them off. Right. And the pathway could be just like you're saying, just appropriate behavior is a pathway, right? Violence is a pathway. All these are different pathways. And I think if we just stop being so myopic on everything, looking at cameras, bulletproof glass, metal detectors, the threat assessment process and structure and team, and all this stuff is all siloed, and it needs to be pulled together, but not for the myopic reason of preventing the next attack, but expanding it out for success of the people who you're trying to take care of, and you're trying to nurture, and you're trying to feed, right? In terms of them being good people. And so in the schools, that's what we're trying to do. The violence stuff happens, and it could happen. But what we need to do is get way in front of even concerning behavior that indicates violence, and don't be so myopic, and look at success as a personal thing, as a wide, student success, right? And looking at, okay, is their attendance good? Yes. Is their academics good? Yes. Are their interpersonal skills good? Yes. Then they're probably going to be successful. And anything that changes that is worthy of identifying and dealing with. And if you do it then, you won't have to do it later when they actually become dangerous.
Well, this is a great conversation. I hope everybody takes the time to really think about what we're talking about. But if you're a parent, you should demand this kind of system for your kids, because we're all busy. The world's changing. There's threats everywhere. Let's start creating civility in our children, and raise them in a way to treat others with respect. And when they're having a bad day, be there as adults to guide them through these very formative years, so they're productive citizens. Right. You can do this. We can do this, and we can leverage technology to help us along the way to be better teachers, to be better counselors, to be better parents.
Absolutely.
So great discussion, Doc. Have a great weekend. I'm painting 2 rooms at the house, so I'll be covered in paint by the end of Saturday.
Sounds good. Have a great weekend.
All right, brother.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.